Good evening. Your time now is 5:52. I'm Jeannette Reyes.
And I'm Kosar Abdi, and this is Off the Record.
Not for real. This is Off the Record.
My mom literally told me that on her deathbed. Here's me traveling private jet, having rich boyfriends, and making this career for myself and all the things. And my mom lived this simple little life, going to Aquafit, had a library card, and just and book club with her friends. And I said, "Is there anything that you want me to do for you in spirit?" And she said, "No, I had a good life." And I realized that I don't, and I have to make some very significant changes because I've been living for the purpose of acquisition, and that's not me. That's never been me. That was part of the journey of self-discovery, finding out that was never me, and had to get back to who I really actually was. So when my mom passed away, there was a moment where I looked in the mirror. I said, "Mel, if you do not know how to start showing yourself grace, you're not going to make it." We did it. Okay, we did it. We survived with the tools that we had, but we know better now. Mm-hmm. And I was just at this the first Hot and Bothered retreat, in the jungles of Mexico. It's a whole. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But one of the things that really resounded with me was let go of what no longer serves you. It's kind of it's just kind of like an ambiguous kind of thing to say to somebody until it resonates. And I realized, Mel, being that sadistic masochist inside your head and telling yourself all these things to try to protect yourself from outside criticism, it worked until it didn't. And it's not working anymore. It doesn't serve you anymore. You got to do something else.
Yeah, put the baseball bat down.
Exactly. And so the journey to being kinder to myself and offering myself grace, that has been one of the hardest journeys, because it has to undo 40 years of programming. 40 years of programming, because I started early with that negative narrative in my head, very early. Like, I'm talking about, I recognized depression at the age of 9. So when I see stories of children committing self-harm or worse at the age of 9 and 10 and 11, I completely understand, because I was that at 9 years old. I was being bullied, and that was what I thought to myself. I should kill myself. I should end my life. So like I said, it was a lot of deep programming that I had to work to undo.
It's amazing that you took that initiative, because I think people think with age it's just going to come naturally.
It doesn't.
But I don't think so. I think people live with this for the rest of their lives until they do something about it. So I think it's amazing that you really took the steps, and it's not easy, and trying to deprogram, like you said, 40 years.
Yeah, you really have to want that for yourself. And honestly, I think that usually something traumatic happens to where that's the fork in the road.
Point, yeah.
Exactly. That's the breaking point. That's the fork in the road where you realize, I can keep going that way, or I can go this way. And maybe that's scary, because I don't know what that looks like, and I don't know how to traverse that trail. But maybe there's some people in my life that can help me traverse that trail. Right. Maybe there's some books that can help me understand the path that I'm embarking on. I think every woman left there, not just with a sense of clarity, but this overwhelming sense of forgiveness towards the people that had harmed them. Oftentimes those are our parents or our loved ones, and also forgiveness for themselves. And then also an acknowledgement that guilt is oftentimes a very worthless emotion that we as women absorb for
everybody's guilt. I'll take your guilt.
I'll take your guilt. Just wear them like earrings, just here my shoulders, and we'll wear them as earrings. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, and I think that we really started to like parcel out what belongs to us and what doesn't belong to us, and that we can suddenly let go of what no longer serves you, let go of what no longer belongs to you, and what no longer belongs to you. It was life altering. It was life altering. But this has been part of the journey, and it makes complete sense.
I feel like all I kept getting was kind of like mean girl, best friendy type of thing. And a lot of best friend, mind you, that was also the time, right? Like, Black girls were just being the best friend. So I would get that consistently.
I do want to talk about the best friend role that you touched on a little bit, because I feel like nowadays, particularly if you watch TV, you will see, I think since Scandal, right? You will see a Black woman play a lead role. But you mentioned at that time, that wasn't the norm.
No,
you would get like the sidekick, the best friend.
Yeah.
and not get a thorough storyline as well.
At all.
So can you touch on that from your experience? Did it ever frustrate you?
Oh yeah, no, I think it's a very frustrating experience. It's like, it's a weird dance because in one respect, you want to work. You're glad to be in the project. In another, you also recognize that you are there only to service the story of somebody else. And so it's like, I actually had this conversation not that long ago with Christy, who was in Cadet Kelly with me. And from her perspective, she was like, oh, but Cadet Kelly was very diverse. And I was trying to explain to her that like, I'm like, it had, you know, a Black girl and it had a Latina and sure, for representation, but like diverse is kind of a bit of a stretch. And both of us were being best friends in that story. Yeah. And on top of that, both of us were playing underprivileged characters. Like we were specifically not as well off as the two white leads kind of thing, or the three white leads. Being a Black actor, especially at that time, you are kind of taking the crumbs of what you can get. Yeah. So there's this real, like, it's
beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah, it's really challenging of like, okay, well, like, I'm glad to see something. I'm annoyed with what it is. But maybe there's a way I can volley this. Maybe there's a way I can work with it.
I know having those experiences time and time again, like does something to you, right? But you've really kind of turned it around and decided to try to affect change in your own way.
Yeah. I mean, I think because I had no choice, like, especially at that time, it does work on, it breaks down your confidence. You know, you are still a kid. Like, so as much as the producers want to act like, oh, we didn't know. Oh my God, we're so sorry. You're like, no, you were aware. You're aware that you're writing storylines like that for children, and you're aware of the toll that this industry takes on people and where their worth can start to lie. And if you are basically deeming them unworthy of a proper storyline for multiple seasons, then you are aware that they are going to come off of this show and have to do something to build back up their own confidence. Right. And so that was a lot of my experience, was just like, I had to actively pursue my wants, pursue my understanding of myself, pursue just like self-love, like truthfully, because the industry was not going to give it to me. And I was very aware that I was a talented person. As I said, I was like, I had already worked. Degrassi was not my first job. So I didn't need Degrassi to tell me that I was a good actress. I had already proven that I was a good actress. But I came off of that show truly wondering if I was capable of doing it at all, because you just, like I said, it's like, if I'm having a school principal meeting every year being like, girl, I'd like to talk, then I don't know how else to kind of go around that, because especially at that time, I would admit that, like, I was a young girl. So if I was frustrated, I was frustrated. And I didn't necessarily maybe have the savvy that I would now in terms of getting somebody to kind of admit to their wrongs. At that time, I was very just like,
well,
it is what it is.
You know, I need a script on Monday.
Exactly. And so, you have, you do your best. So I did have fun. Yeah. I did enjoy the learning that I got to experience, but I would definitely say it's a good and bad experience that I had there.
I wanted to echo what Jeannette said, because she really did say that you spun it around and now you're behind the camera as well. I mean, you're still in front of the camera, but you really wanted to make change behind the camera. And I feel like that's the Black beauty effect. And there's a line where you basically are like, Black women are the cult, like, we are the influence, we are the moment. And I love that you didn't just talk about it, but you made something, a creative project for everyone to see. Let me document this, and then include so many people, such great names.
Which is quite the feat. I mean, I was telling her, I'm like, to pull this thing off as beautifully as you did on Netflix with the fanfare that it got, where did that start? Not so much the want to do it, but like, practically speaking, how the heck do you...
How'd you do it? You know what? It was a few things. One, I always tell people I was living here in Brooklyn and I was inspired. I was inspired by, one, the natural hair movement was happening, influencers were happening, these communities were happening, and just kind of like incubating themselves in like such a beautiful way. It was like, just everything was like, oh, we can be together and be really happy. And I didn't think that I saw any media that reflected how my friends and I felt about ourselves. Even like I said, like I was like, when I was that age, I was a cutie patootie and like I was in the world, but like Hazel was never treated like she was the beauty. And in real life, I did not struggle to find a man. So that's where you're like, those are the things that I was like, yeah, my real life feeling, my mom or the women in my life, they feel beautiful, but media is always telling us like that we're not, or that we gotta be changing some part of ourselves. So this was just always on my mind. As I said, I also grew up in hair and makeup rooms, so I got to see people's interpretation of my beauty a lot, and the good, the bad, all of those kinds of things. And then I was truly like a true beauty enthusiast. I'm like a fan. I'm a fan of pros. I'm a fan of craft. So from the celebrity hair and makeup artist to the stylist to all the people, I'm like, oh, I can't even believe it. Wanted to tell this story, but a celebratory story about Black beauty was just not interesting for people. Like people were not used to that kind of thing. They wanted to, they were like, well, what are you making? Like, why? What are you making? And I was very fortunate that one of my friends, one of my champions, Keisha Boyd, who is with Comcast, I just used to tell her about it all the time, like just like every step that I was doing. And so I guess in the traditional sense, I started to package this idea like a traditional producing person would or production would, which is like, you know, a sizzle, a deck, like what is the idea? What is the actual concept that you are trying to say? Which oftentimes people don't always understand that like the idea then has to be balled into something. Yeah. Like you can't just keep talking about it. Like show me something now. So that's what I started to do very actively. And just kind of talking to people. And like I said, I started to get a little frustrated because I could see how necessary it was to have a celebratory story, to have a story that highlighted what we did in despite of what people were telling us. People didn't always get that. Luckily or not, we have 2020 happen, George Floyd, and now all these Black creators, people are paying a lot of attention. So I started to, like I said, get the people on board. So my first person that I got on board was Jackie Aina, who to me was like the girl in terms of makeup and beauty and just the voice. And we were pitching everybody at this time. Like this is COVID, so we're all on Zoom and we're pitching everything from Hulu to ABC, every single network. And some people got it, but some people were like, but like, what's the hook? Literally one of the pitches, I always remember Jackie having to be like, it's just a celebratory story.
You know what I think it is? Like, I'm sure they're like, well, where's the tension, the trauma, the heartache? Yeah. There's got to be some negative, the struggle to make it worth it.
They wanted these girls to be like, as
I hate myself.
Yes. Right. Like, or like social activists. Like they wanted them to be kind of like, they're on the front lines. And I was like, they are on the front lines.
But this is like a soft line. Yeah. Like we're just we're
like
having a good time.
Their representation is the change, and that's why it matters. Yeah. So nonetheless, pitching, and then Comcast was like, "Hey, pitch to us now," and we pitched to Comcast, and it was not like a pitch, and they were basically like, "We totally get it. We trust it." Wow. They were our first partner. We did our premiere with them, and at our premiere, we invited Netflix, who we had already pitched to, mind you, and they were like, "I don't know." And we had this big, beautiful premiere, and they came and they right away knew that we did a deal with us so that we would have it on Netflix after. But it was, like I said, it was years. But I'm a beauty enthusiast. So all the names, all the people that you see, I'm a fan.
That's such a good example of like what some define luck as, like it's preparation meets, what is it? Opportunity, right? You just had that thing ready to go.
Yeah. No, I'm a big advocate in like, not every idea is immediate. They need crafting, they need understanding, and then like your network is everything. And some people in your network are not going to be the person for you right now, but they are going to be the person for you in 5 years. Yeah. And so let things grow.
Early relationship with hair was interesting. I grew up in Orange County, so I grew up in a predominantly white and Asian neighborhood. And it wasn't until I was in high school, my freshman year, when I was a cheerleader, the only Black girl on the cheer team, and they would tell us to do our hair in these like different hairstyles. They'd be like, oh, we just could throw some water on it and it'll be like crinkly. And I said, my hair doesn't do that. My hair didn't do the things that my counterparts or my classmates' hair did. And so it was very early on that I realized my hair was different because everyone around me had different hair. But it wasn't until like that moment that I realized like why it was different and that no one else understood how different my hair was from there.
How do you decenter hair as part of your identity?
You can't.
You can't.
I just don't think you can. It's too much for men and women. I think it's too much of who we are and how we present.
Is it for Black and like everybody or?
I think for all. I think for all. But I feel that for the Black community specifically, or people with textured hair specifically, it is more of a focal point because it is such a differentiator. And anything that makes us different, we become insecure about.
Wow. For both good and bad, right?
Good and bad. We become insecure about it, and it's like, you always are gonna think like, okay, is my hair too big? Or is my hair gonna be a conversation? Or or am I gonna stick out? That's really what it is. Like, how different you are from the group, right? So from color to texture to sex to size, it's all something that we internally struggle with. I started working with Ms. Obama as in their household in 2009 by way of Johnny Wright, who was her hairstylist for 8 years while we were in the White House. And I worked with him in California. And when he got the opportunity to relocate to DC to work with her, he asked me to come along to focus primarily on the girls, her daughters, and her mother, Mrs. Robinson. And then I stood in for him whenever he was unavailable. And I knew that was going to be the client because he had told me before I moved, and I initially said no. I said I wasn't going to relocate. I was like, yeah, good luck. That goes back to the whole stories of like, I was in college. I was, there was my comfort, my orbit. I was 21. I wasn't going to pick up and move across the country because I was doing hair. It didn't seem like the smart decision for the way that my mind was programmed. So I ended up doing it. He ended up moving February 14th, and I ended up moving April 7th. 2009 and have been in their orbit ever since. And I took over as her primary hairstylist in 2017, February 2017, right after they left office. Started doing her color in 2012, I want to say. I started popping in as her colorist. So I did stand in, and I've done her for like smaller events, some larger events. She was a public figure. And with most public figures, not celebrities, with most public figures, you're going to see continuity in their look. Yeah. You want a recognizable look. And I'm sure similar to TV, you can't just change your hair because the followers or your audience is going to be like, well, who's that?
I do want to know from a personal experience, what did you learn just observing how she was perceived?
So much. I saw a Black woman be ridiculed in every single thing that she did for just being who she was, right? So even when I think that a majority of Black women knew why she didn't wear her hair natural. There wasn't an expectation for her to wear her hair natural. There wasn't an expectation for her to wear her hair in braids. But I do think that they looked to her for that rite of passage. 2022, when she went into braids, everyone was like, okay, Michelle rocking braids, I'm gonna rock braids. When she wore her hair curly, people were like, I feel more empowered to show up with curls or to not always straighten my hair. So I do think that there was a little bit of that. She, for me, allowed me to understand that you are good enough. And one of the things that she always talks about throughout all of her books, a lot of her podcasts, is that you get to these big tables and you realize that you are worthy. And for me, that aha moment really took place because everyone just says, you're just a hairstylist, right? Like, you just do hair. That was one of the things. And living in DC, more than anything, it's like the first question that they ask you was, what do you do? Right. And for the longest, I struggled to be like, oh, I'm a hairstylist. But I was working for one of the most powerful families in the world.
I would be like, in the Oval Office.
Right.
But
just drop it.
Confidence. So when I was talking to Mrs.
that
Obama,
confidence didn't come. That confidence wasn't there because you're always told that you're not good enough or that what you do isn't good enough. And that was something that she constantly said to everyone that she spoke with. And as a mentee of hers, that was one of the things that I was like, you're right.